Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Ramya and with me is Renu Kataria, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. US announces Indo-Pacific Strategy to support India's continued rise and regional leadership. Expresses concern over Chinese role in the region. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar holds talks with Australian counterpart Marise Payne, discusses wide range of bilateral issues. New Delhi says motivated comments by some countries on dress code in some educational institutions in Karnataka are not welcome. World Radio Day to be observed on 13th February. All India Radio to broadcast a 7-hour talkathon on the occasion. India's indigenous Tejas Mk-1 aircraft to participate in Singapore Air Show 2022. With the new Omicron variant of coronavirus causing concern, we appeal to our listeners to be vigilant and to get fully vaccinated and help others, including children between 15 and 18 years, to get vaccinated. Please continue to follow these 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. US President Joe Biden's administration has released its long-awaited Indo-Pacific Strategy. The document focuses on building collective capacity to deal with challenges in the region, China's assertiveness, the pandemic and climate change, among others. The strategy document said the US will continue to support India's rise and regional leadership, working with India bilaterally and through groups on a range of issues. It refers to India as a like-minded partner and driving force in the Quad. The Indo-Pacific Strategic Report was released as part of the Quad Ministerial with foreign ministers of Australia, India, Japan and the US on Friday. The ministers expressed concerns over the malign Chinese role in the region. The report said that India faces significant geopolitical challenges from China and its behavior on the line of actual control (LAC). The report added the Chinese coercion spans the globe, but it is most acute in the Indo-Pacific.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has welcomed the reopening of the Australian border, which will help stranded Indian students and visa holders to return to Australia. Australia is set to open its border for fully vaccinated tourists and all visa holders almost 2 years after borders were first closed due to COVID-19. Addressing a joint press conference with his Australian counterpart Marise Payne in Melbourne, Mr. Jaishankar said it will help those who have been in India waiting to come back, especially students, temporary visa holders and separated families, and this is something which is greatly appreciated. Dr. Jaishankar said the discussion with his Australian counterpart was very comprehensive and very fruitful. He said both sides looked at a very wide range of topics concerning the bilateral, regional and global partnership.
We discussed briefly today progress in our defense and security cooperation, which reflects our growing strategic convergence. The inaugural Cyber Framework Dialogue was particularly useful in reviewing our joint activities under our framework agreement. We discussed some of our shared challenges and opportunities for closer collaboration in this very important domain. We shared concerns about terrorism and extremism. We have serious concerns about continuing cross-border terrorism, and it's our shared endeavor to deepen counter-terrorism cooperation, including in the multilateral forum.
Dr. Jaishankar said India and Australia have committed to build more trusted and resilient supply chains and ensuring broad and inclusive growth in the Indo-Pacific. Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne announced Maitri Scholars Program, under which it will provide over $11 million for 4 years to support Indian students to study in Australia's world-leading universities. Ms. Payne said that Quad is not against anything. The group has a very positive agenda. It is about building resilience and about promoting a region without the threat of coercion or intimidation. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on messages from Quad meeting. In conversation are Bhaswati Mukherjee, former ambassador, and Sanjay Jha, journalist.
The foreign ministers of India, Japan, and the United States met in Australia for the Quad Ministerial, which is preparing the way for a meeting between Prime Minister Modi, the US President Biden, Australian PM Morrison. It was hosted by Japanese, PM Kishida in Tokyo in the next few months. What is the importance of this meeting you see from Indian perspective, Ambassador Mukherjee?
This meeting is of great importance because, first of all, the very existence of the Quad helps to underline what India has been saying along with its other security partners, that the principal challenge to international peace and security emanates in the Indo-Pacific and from China, a rising China, an aggressive China, etc. And to have this Quad ministerial and to prepare the Quad heads meeting helps to bring that message back at a time when there are other trouble spots and at a time when the international focus may be moving away from Indo-Pacific back to, let's say, the escalating crisis in Ukraine, etc. This helps to focus on what India has been saying for a while, along with the Quad, that let us focus on a rule-based order in the Indo-Pacific. This is where the world needs to focus, and the Quad is there to ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains free of tension and also a great trading route important for the economies of the Quad countries and globally.
While Quad members have reiterated that the grouping is only an economic coalition of like-minded Indo-Pacific democracies who are involved in ensuring a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific and rule-based international order. We saw this time the discussion was on many issues of, the bilateral interests or the interests which are sort of, beneficial to the members. We saw there was a discussion about the vaccine partnership. There have been plans made to produce 1 billion vaccine for the Indo-Pacific region, which of course will be funded by US. But produced in India and distributed through Japanese and Australian network. So this vaccine partnership is also now becoming a discussion point in Quad. How do you see this development?
The vaccine partnership is of primary importance, and it is also linked to the future of the global economy, because the vaccine partnership will ensure that the world finally comes out of the pandemic and that the growth which had been interrupted during the 2 years of the pandemic comes back to normal. Moreover, India has been saying, along with its Quad partners, that India is a vaccine hub and Indian vaccines are much cheaper, and India should actually be the world leader for distributing these vaccines. So this vaccine partnership and the fact that these vaccines will be made in India also helps to reinforce India's leading position as a vaccine maker of the world, and also to make these vaccines accessible to those parts of the world which had been deprived of these vaccines, for example, Africa, and to reinforce what India has said and what Quad now supports, which is that since the world is globalized, unless every part of the globe is vaccinated, we will never be able to come out of the pandemic or its many, many variants. So I think this is of primary importance, and it is also very important that India's leadership role has been acknowledged by the other three Quad partners, who are very important economies in their own right.
Apart from the vaccine partnership, there was a discussion about critical and emerging technology. All the four members, India, Japan, United States, and Australia, quite a big economy in the world order. Now we have seen the emergence of 5G technologies. US, they have already launched in some part of the country. The 5G network development in India is also in the final stages. We have developed indigenous 4G core and radio networks and also participating in development of 6G standard. So building a safe and transparent 5G network is very, very important and critical for our infrastructure, for the interest of our country. So there was a discussion in this. You think the Quad member, these four members, can come together and sort of, come up with a better solution for the 5G?
Definitely. This is an area where India requires the support of its Quad partners, particularly United States. We really need to move fast as India and Indians on the 5G, and working with Quad, we will be able to make that vital step forward by which we can bring 5G to our vast market here in India, as indeed we did earlier with 4G, and we will be able to work on improving it further. So yes, this is one area again which came under the section critical and emerging technologies, or where Quad is working together And again, this is a win-win situation for the Quad and for India particularly, because India really needs to move forward on this. Indeed, this is one of the priority areas for us, as is semiconductors. So just as semiconductors are important, we also need to move very, very fast on 5G, and where better but with the support and collaboration of our Quad partners.
Ambassador Mukherjee, you spoke about semiconductor. Climate change is now becoming a topic in every international summit nowadays. And the Australian Prime Minister has announced a plan to hold the Indo-Pacific Clean Energy Supply Chain Forum in the middle of this year, wherein the member countries will focus on issues of clean energy supply chain. The United States, Japan, India, and Australia are working to improve the security of supply chains for critical technologies such as clean energy to ease the global semiconductor shortage. Japan, was traditionally the big manufacturing of electronics, before China came on the scene. America as world's most richest country. India with its huge population and manufacturing base. And Australia with the big market. How do you see the role of these four countries in tackling the climate change crisis?
Actually, it is absolutely fundamental. And as far as the shortage of semiconductors are concerned, this is of deep concern to India, but also to the European Union and to the United States. The semiconductor shortage means that the flow of semiconductors, the supply of semiconductors has shifted to China. And of course, we have access to technology of semiconductors thanks to Taiwan. And we are trying to build semiconductors in India. Finally, take that leap, which we have done actually. And semiconductors, as you rightly point out, is a very essential part of the security of clean energy supply chains. And we cannot, in fact, hesitate or delay on this matter, because any delay moves the control in the supply of semiconductors firmly in Chinese hands. And we need to have diversification. And that is why the West and our Quad partners and India are looking at how to diversify the supply of semiconductors, and in India's case, to make these semiconductors in India, so that we don't have to be dependent on outside technology at all. We make our own semiconductors. So it's one of the important items on Quad's agenda, and it is linked, of course, to climate change. It is linked to a lot of other security issues which are of fundamental importance to the Quad countries. I'm glad you raised this of great importance.
We know that Quad remains strong on its Indo-Pacific commitments, but the world views of the four Quad partners is far from the same. Most of the issues are with the consensus, but there are issues where there are divergent views. And that is what was clear in this summit and also earlier as well. So the Quad was born from a vision of Indo-Pacific as a single strategic space where activities in one area would inevitably affect activities in the other. We saw India, Japan, America, and Australia having a little bit of divergent views on the crisis around the world. How is that going to affect the functioning of the Quad or the next summit? What do you think about this?
Well, I don't have any particular anxiety on this matter, because the Quad, as you rightly point out yourself, was established for the security of the Indo-Pacific and its vision as a single strategic space, and also as the vision of the fact that the focus of the world has shifted to this part of the world, Indo-Pacific, where India belongs, where Japan belongs. The divergent views, if I may put it, are a question of focus. Should we focus exclusively on something that is emerging in a critical part of Europe to the extent that it diverts attention away from Indo-Pacific? And there, I think the message which India has given is very clear, that India is completely committed to the security of the Indo-Pacific. And as far as the other trouble spot is concerned, India will push for a negotiated solution and will do everything it can to prevent outbreak of hostilities, because India believes that the focus should remain on Indo-Pacific, should not be diverted away, because if it goes away from Indo-Pacific, the country that benefits most is China. And it is Chinese activity and aggression in the Indo-Pacific and to its neighbors, including India, which led to the creation of the Quad in the first place. So I think in the long run, there would be no divergent interest, because this is an issue on which Quad members have the same vision. That's why they formed the grouping. And I think that this is the way forward that India has repeatedly indicated to its Quad partners privately and publicly. That's the right message, I think, that the focus should continue to be on the Indo-Pacific.
I'm glad that you mentioned about China. As we all know, China had initially opposed the formation of Quad, and since then, China's position has not changed. In fact, in 2018, the Chinese foreign minister had referred to the Quad as a headline-grabbing idea and accused the group of openly inciting discord among regional powers in Asia. China sees the existence of the Quad as part of a larger strategy to encircle China and has pressured countries like Bangladesh to avoid cooperating with the group. It is important also here to note that China claims nearly all of the disputed South China Sea, though Taiwan, the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia and Vietnam all claim parts of it. I mean, obviously they have a natural claim on it. But Beijing has also built artificial islands and military installations in the South China Sea. China has also territorial disputes with Japan in East China Sea. So how do you see China watching this summit, the meeting of the foreign minister and subsequent meeting with the head of the states?
The Chinese position on Quad has actually hardened. China has gone to the extent of calling the Quad an Asian NATO, etc. The real reason why China sees Quad as a threat is because this is for the first time that countries in the region and outside the region have stood up to Chinese bullying and have said that they will ensure that the Asia-Pacific remains trouble-free, conflict-free, and they will not allow the rule-based order in this part of the world to collapse. Moreover, it also sees the Quad as a challenge to the BRI because now that countries are aware of what the BRI really means, which for instance in our neighborhood is like loss of sovereignty. There are countries in our neighborhood hostile to us who have lost sovereignty to the Chinese because the Chinese have taken over their territories. So in the Quad, there is an effort to develop alternatives to the BRI through the Global Gateway Project, for example, of the European Union, and through many other initiatives that are being discussed. All this, naturally, China sees as a great threat because China would like the emerging order to be dominated by what used to be called the Middle Kingdom, that is China. And China sees Quad as an visible effort to resist and to ensure that that does not happen, that the rule-based order continues and that the checks and balances of the present international system continue. So naturally, China will consider the Quad to be a huge threat to its ambitions, particularly in this part of the world where they have shown hegemonistic tendencies. They've tried to bully their neighbors. They've tried to salami-size Indian territory, etc. And as you rightly say, they have put forward claims almost on the entire South China Sea, including in areas which belong to other states and which are a clear violation of the Law of the Sea Convention to which China is a state party. So naturally, the Chinese will regard the Quad as a threat. That is a given under the circumstances.
Let's hope that with the help of the Quad, Chinese ambition to control all these areas is controlled, as well as, the world peace is maintained. Thank you very much for your time, Ambassador Mukherjee.
Thank you very much.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
The External Affairs Ministry has said motivated comments on India's internal issues are not welcome. The statement came on Saturday in the wake of the comments made by some countries on dress code in some educational institutions in Karnataka. Official spokesperson of External Affairs Ministry, Arindam Bagchi, said a matter regarding dress code in some educational institutions in Karnataka is under judicial examination by the Honorable High Court of Karnataka. He said the country's constitutional framework and mechanisms, as well as democratic ethos and polity, are the context in which issues are considered and resolved. He said those who know India well would have a proper appreciation of these realities. Reminding the radio buffs, 13th February is the World Radio Day. Every year, 13th February is observed to raise awareness among the people and the media about the importance of radio and to encourage access to information through radio. A report.
It is also a day to remember the unique power of radio, which touches lives and brings people together from every corner of the globe. This year, the theme for World Radio Day is Radio and Trust. And true to its mandate, All India Radio emerged as the #1 trusted brand in a recent survey by Reuters. Radio is a powerful medium for celebrating humanity in all of its diversity and constitutes a platform for democratic discourse, proclaimed in 2011 by the member states of UNESCO and adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 as an international day. February 13th became World Radio Day. On this occasion, All India Radio will be organizing a half-an-hour open forum from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow on FM Rainbow at 102.6 MHz. In the program, listeners can interact with the Director General of All India Radio, N. Venudhar Reddy, on the topic Credibility of All India Radio. You can participate directly through the WhatsApp number 9868107070 or by dialing the toll-free number 1-800-111-026. So stay tuned with us. Niharika Bhuvania for World News, All India Radio.
विश्व रेडियो दिवस के अवसर पर आकाशवाणी के महानिदेशक श्री एन वेणुधर रेड्डी हमारे बीच होंगे और बातचीत होगी क्रेडिबिलिटी ऑफ ऑल इंडिया रेडियो विषय पर। आप भी हमसे जुड़ सकते हैं। व्हाट्सएप नंबर है 9868107070 और टोल फ्री नंबर है 1800111026। 13 फरवरी सुबह 9:30 बजे AIR FM रेनबो 102.6 और YouTube लाइव पर।
A 44-member contingent of Indian Air Force IAF has reached Shanghi International Airport, Singapore to participate in the Singapore Air Show 2022. The Air Show will be held from 15th to 18th of this month. Singapore Air Show is a biennial event which provides a platform for the global aviation industry to showcase their products. Indian Ministry of Defence in a statement said that IAF will be pitching the indigenous light combat aircraft Tejas Mk1 alongside participants from across the world. President Joe Biden signed an order to freeze $7 billion in Afghan assets now frozen in the U.S. The money will be split between humanitarian aid for poverty-stricken Afghanistan and a fund for September 11th victims still seeking relief for the terror attacks that killed thousands and shocked the world. No money would be immediately released, but Biden's order calls for banks to provide $3.5 billion of the frozen amount to a trust fund for distribution through humanitarian groups for Afghan relief and basic needs. And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let's take a look at what made the headlines in Nepal. Kantipur Daily reports that Nepali Congress NC leader Dr. Shekhar Koirala has said that a decision on the Millennium Corporation Challenge MCC has to be given a logical conclusion through either all-party consensus or the parliamentary process if consensus is lacking. The Kathmandu Post headline reads, differences persist among top leaders over MCC compact. According to report, the Hull wants consensus bid postponed until after elections, while Madhav Nepal and Upendra Yadav call for review of pact terms. It adds that in the ruling coalition, only the Nepali Congress is fully committed to its ratification. The Kathmandu Post writes that Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba and chairs of the CPN-UML and Communist Party of Nepal, Mayas Centre, KP Sharma Oli and Pushpa Kamal Dahal held a crucial meeting at Baluvatar on Friday. Kantipur Daily headline reads, long-awaited Jayanagar-Kurta rail line shall be functional. It adds that without the passengers, a train will run once daily on the track from Sunday as a dry run. The date of inauguration is not yet finalized. Till then, a dry run will be operational. The rail line has been constructed from the grant provided by Government of India to Nepal. Khar Hub mentions that the Tibetan Buddhist Ling Rinpoche, identified as the reincarnation of the teacher of the Dalai Lama, has criticized China for destroying Buddhism in order to destroy the identity of the Tibetans in Tibet region. And now some news from Bangladesh. The search committee tasked with the formation of the Election Commission in Bangladesh has received 329 names from various political parties, individuals and organizations, said the Cabinet Secretary Khandekar Anwarul Islam. Out of these, 136 names have been proposed by political parties, reports Daily Star. The newly appointed U.S. Ambassador to Bangladesh, Peter D. Haas, said he looks forward to working together with Dhaka to further advance the relationship between the two countries, reports the official news agency BSS. He was speaking at an interaction with the officials of the Bangladesh Embassy in the US.
Let's take a look at the press reports on China. Indian Express writes that External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar joined counterparts from US, Japan and host Australia at the meeting of Quad foreign ministers in Melbourne on Friday to send a clear signal to Beijing, highlighting their pursuit of a shared vision to uphold a rules-based international order free from coercion, one based on respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty. Hindustan Times reports that Beijing has said that Quad is a tool to contain China and stoke confrontation. It quoted Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian saying that the Quad mechanism is in nature a tool to contain and circle China and preserve America's hegemony. PTI has carried prominently the release of the Indo-Pacific Strategy report by the United States. It says that India is beset with significant geopolitical challenges and in particular from China and its behavior on the line of actual control. According to Reuters, United States vowed on Friday to commit more diplomatic and security resources to the Indo-Pacific to push back against what it sees as China's bid to create a regional sphere of influence and become the world's most influential power. Al Jazeera reports China continues to carry out discriminatory work policies such as forced labor, impossible production expectations and long working hours against Uyghurs in its northwest province of Xinjiang at United Nations Committee said on Friday, urging Beijing to bring its employment practices in line with global standards. Wall Street Journal writes that Biden administration is intensifying its campaign to persuade Equatorial Guinea to reject China's bid to build a military base on the country's Atlantic coast. Reuters reported China cannot dictate who Somaliland can have relations with, as it was a sovereign nation and born free, the foreign minister of the breakaway Somali region said on Friday during a trip to Taiwan, which has been condemned by Beijing. Channel News Asia reports Chinese spies sought to fund candidates for Australia's centre-left Labour opposition party in an upcoming federal election, but the plot was foiled by the Australian National Security Agency, multiple media outlets reported on Friday. And turning to Afghanistan now, Hindustan Times headline reads, Ungoverned Afghan spaces pose a direct threat to Indo-Pacific security Quad. It adds that the members of the Quad, India, Australia, Japan and the US, reiterated their condemnation of terror attacks in India, including the 2008 Mumbai and 2016 Pathankot attacks. PTI reports that India's Minister of State for External Affairs, V. Muralidharan, said in Lok Sabha on Friday that situation in Afghanistan is of natural concern for neighbouring countries like India, and in broad terms the Central Asian countries share some concern and similar objectives. Pajvok reports that the US President has inked an executive order freeing up $7 billion in frozen Afghan central bank reserves to be split between humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people and American victims of terrorism, including relatives of 9/11 attacks. New York Times headline reads, Spurning demand by the Taliban, Biden moves to split $7 billion in frozen Afghan funds. A quick look at the headlines once again. US announces Indo-Pacific Strategy to support India's continued rise and regional leadership, expresses concern over Chinese role in the region. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar holds talks with Australian counterpart Marie Payne, discusses wide range of bilateral issues. New Delhi says motivated comments by some countries on dress code in some educational institutions in Karnataka are not welcome. World Radio Day to be observed on 13th February. All India Radio to broadcast a 7-hour talkathon on the occasion. India's indigenous Tejas Mk1 aircraft to participate in Singapore Air Show 2022. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Estonia. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.